Okay, this video is on the lesson dealing with creating graphics in Canvas. So we have our Canvas program opened, and here we're going to select illustration, and all of the options for this page are selected here on our program. So we have a letter size paper, no scale, all the things that are on number 1 in your binder are already selected. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to go down to number 3, and it asks us to show the grids if we want to see a grid to draw from. So we'll want to see that and the rulers. Number 4, using the line tool, draw the following shape. You must select the line tool for each line drawn. So for this activity, you're going to draw a sailboat. And what I found when doing this is that you can draw the sailboat using the line tool, which will draw one line each time you click on the line tool. But the problem with this is that if later you want to go in and you want to fill in this shape with a color, it will not allow you to do that since these are all independent lines. So you could draw it like this, and you could have lines connecting to form a shape. But what I like to do is you could also use this curve tool, and if you go to the polygon tool, you'll be able to draw the same shape it shows in number 4, except this time you'll be able to fill it in with a color. So I'll be able to draw that shape. So basically we're going to draw from point to point where we want that shape to go. And once we're finished, we could press escape on the keyboard, and now that shape will be drawn on our page. So again, we can do the same thing with the line tool, except it's not going to be able to get filled. So I could draw my same shape that way, and each time I have to go in and click the line tool to draw a new line, which is kind of difficult. So this shape I just drew, if I go in, I can't use the fill tool to fill it, and I can't fill it in with any sort of filling tool. Whereas this shape here, if I select it, I could go in the paint bucket, the fill tool, I could fill it with a color. So if you want to make a shape later, a basic shape, it's probably easier to use this polygonal tool here. So I'm going to get rid of this shape right here, and we're going to use this. And I'm going to stretch this out a little bit to make it look even. Okay, so there's number 4. So notice the window appears above the drawing area that shows you detailed information about the line you're drawing. This window will change each time you select a new tool. So that's the stuff that's up here. So depending on the tool that you're working on, the different menu options at the top of the screen are going to change. So it just depends on the tool that you have selected here from the toolbox. So I can select for number 5 the rectangle tool, and I can draw the mast of the sailboat, and I can fill that as well. So if I'm not using that line tool, I can fill in these solid objects. So there's ways of making these solid objects without having to worry about whether you can fill it or not later. Okay, so number 6, right click the drawing area and select hide grids, or click on the grids property box. So if we go up here and I select the selection tool and click on my grid, I can take off the grid now. So we can make our shapes nice and neat. Number 7, draw a triangle on top of the rectangle you just created. So we're making the sails. So I can click on the line tool, or I could again use this curve tool and use the polygon tool and draw my sails that way. And I could connect everything and press escape when I'm done. And now I can be able to fill that in with a color later if I like. And Notice that the triangle is on top of my mast, the rectangle. If I right click on it, I could actually arrange it and I could send it behind the other shape so that my mast, the rectangle, stands out. Okay, so with the paintbrush tool selected, select a color from the palette and begin painting your boat. You must click, hold, and drag the mouse. So if I didn't want to go and fill this color in, let's say I wanted this no color, it's telling us that we could also use the paintbrush tool and we could actually paint this a color on our screen and we could fill it in this way, which is okay if we want to freehand stuff, but not so good if we want to make it look really nice and neat. So if we go in and just use that fill tool, we could actually do a much better job than doing what we're doing here. But this is just practice, so you can try both. So we can fill that in a color, and notice it's not as neat as using a fill effect. Experiment with other tools in the palette. So we can experiment with these other tools, try different things, and see how they work by using that paint color. And we could see what happens by trying these different effects and seeing how things look. Okay, the sailboat was only one idea showing what you can create using the shape tools. So you can use basic shapes and basic things with these tools. Nothing extremely complex unless you get really good at what you're doing. You could probably make some pretty interesting things using just some basic shapes. So once you're finished making your boat and going through all of the steps, which I did not go through all the steps, then you can save your work and move on.